Madam Acting Deputy Speaker. I want to take this 5 minutes to provide a ready reckoner to my constituents and those others watching the parliamentary feed on the state budget, how it impacts South Australians, and in particular I'm having a mind to how it impacts South Australians who are young or potentially haven't even been born yet. The headline thing in a budget, people talk about deficits and surpluses. The Treasurer is proud that he has delivered a surplus. I point to the fact that this year, in this year's budget, there is nearly $3 billion extra in the budget than was forecast just a couple of years ago. This is extra money coming into the state each and every year as a result of bracket creep on things like payroll tax. The businesses who were not previously paying payroll tax are now paying payroll tax because the cost of labour has gone up. Businesses who were paying less payroll tax are now paying more because of inflation in the cost of labour. It is because of significant increases in GST revenue, unanticipated by earlier budgets, because of the cost of living going up dramatically. Madam Acting Deputy Speaker, can I say this budget surplus is built on a fabrication. In terms of real terms, what it is built on is a massively inflated tax take. Stamp duty because the property prices have gone up, payroll tax going up because the cost of labour is going up, and GST going up dramatically because the cost of food and other groceries has gone up. Despite the small operating surplus as a result of this billions of dollars of extra tax take, which of course the government has immediately started spending each and every year going forward rather than putting any aside to pay down debt or putting any aside to let South Australians be taxed less through reductions in tax or payroll tax. Despite that, there is also a massive inflation in the debt figure. Some people ask, why can the debt go up even though there's an operating surplus? The debt can go up because the operating surplus doesn't take into account capital investment. It doesn't take into account the expense, for example, of the North-South corridor. It does not take into account, for example, the expense of the Women's and Children's Hospital. I highlight these two projects because they are specifically inflated as a result of decisions taken by this government. Both projects delayed and inflated as a result of rescoping and changing and delays by this government. The North-South corridor is $5 billion more expensive being delivered later as a result of the decisions of this government and the Minister for Transport. The Women's and Children's Hospital has been moved to knock down the police barracks and it's being delivered later as a result of the decisions by this government and the Health Minister. It's $1 billion more than it was going to be. These decisions matter, they delay projects and they massively inflate the debt. I should also say, of course, the Women's and Children's Hospital also has the corollary that they're moving the police horses and the dogs and the band, presumably, and other things to Gepps Cross at a cost of presumably $200 million or more extra, all added to the state's credit card. This is the financial outcome of the Malinaskis Labor government. Stephen Mulligan, the Treasurer, says occasionally, well, the former government put on debt as well. That's true. We were dealing with a once-in-a-generation, in fact, once in 4 generations global pandemic, a once-in-a-100-year global pandemic where we had to spend money to keep people alive and to keep people in jobs. That's a fairly significant difference. The government has put extra money into health, we acknowledge. They talk a lot about the inputs into health. We're interested in the outcomes in health. The government didn't promise we're going to put X, Y and Z inputs and after every budget add in extra inputs because our plan isn't working. The government said they were going to fix ramping, and ramping is 3 times worse. We are interested in outcomes. The government only talks about inputs. We have said that we will relieve the burden of GPs and in particular their patients if we're elected at the next election by removing the payroll tax from GPs, which this government is going to start collecting on the 1st of July. We have also said that we will increase the threshold on payroll tax to deal with some of that bracket creep, and we will remove payroll tax from apprentices and trainees because we don't think it's fair that they have that impost put on them, given that the small businesses paying that and the larger businesses are doing the state and those apprentices and trainees a great favour by employing them in that way. As the Shadow Minister for Education, Training and Skills, I note that the budget's big spending allocations here were in training, although actually that was an allocation that was announced in October last year, despite the government's repeated efforts to get new media for it, and in 3-year-old preschool, which was promised for 2026 and is now being delivered in 2032. My summary for the constituents in Morialta or elsewhere is this wasn't a very good budget. I'm not very impressed by the work that government has done here. I urge them to do better in their final year next year, the fourth and final Malinauskas government budget, ahead of better management coming in 2026.